Meet Kate Turner, a trailblazer in the realm of digital sustainability. A former military engineering officer, now a decarbonisation and ethics consultant, Kate is at the vanguard of integrating technological innovation with environmental stewardship. Her journey from the armed forces to the halls of Yale and Oxford showcases a relentless pursuit of knowledge and a commitment to ethical progress.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
One of the things I was excited about planning for this was just you have a very unique background from a lot of the folks at this conference. And in general, I think you bring a very unique perspective. So it's exciting to get a chance to talk to you. Maybe to start with, your background goes back to being in the military. What drew you to the military originally, and talk about that experience?
God, well, it was a really, really long time ago now. But the thing that got me into that was I wanted to leave home, and I was an absolute nerd, and I really enjoyed my education. So it was a good way for me to be able to put myself through school and then through university and get on a bit of a pipeline where I knew I'd get a good, secure job. I didn't really know afterwards where it would take me. And on my first day, once I'd finished all my phase 1 and phase 2 training, I sat on my chair. I was in a command position, loved it, and I sat there thinking, what next? I haven't thought about anything next, but yeah, it was quite a long, but it was a good and valuable journey.
And then you left the military and went into consulting. What
I did.
drew you to consulting?
Well, essentially, so I spent my time in defence as an engineering officer, having done an engineering degree before. So essentially, and this is kind of a theme with me, it all comes back to problem solving. But the first and biggest part of that is understanding the problem. I looked to where I'd be able to translate quite quickly from being an engineering officer, and consultancy seemed a good place to start. They often say to kind of, instead of going and do the sort of hypotenuse of a triangle, of like move into a completely different sector and a completely different skill, to just do one of those things first. So I've maybe done one, and maybe there'll be another one to a new sector, new skill, but that's kind of where I am at the moment.
Well, that's the first time we've had hypotenuse in any one of our interviews.
I didn't think I'd ever use it.
Well done. I'm going to have to pull that out sometime. I just enjoy chasing, making a hypothesis. It's great. So I'm really interested in how you also have gone pretty broad in terms of the areas that you look at. So you have this defense background, this engineering background, but talk to me about sustainability, some of the other things that you're really focused on.
My interest in sustainability came when I took some time away from the military and did some visiting research at Yale, where I was, again, just looking at big problems that I saw in the world and what I wanted to get after, because I was trying to reinvent myself a little bit, I think. So sustainability, I was predominantly looking at climate change, which then led me down the route of greenhouse gas emissions. And then that led me down the route of, okay, well, how do we understand the problem? What's the scale of it? And then into quantifying it. So then I taught myself how to do carbon accounting. And then that kind of like brought me back into this space where, well, does defense know maybe what its carbon emissions are, and can I like reapply it there? So that's predominantly it. But I have a real interest as well in how we can counter biodiversity loss. But I guess that's from a more kind of personal place, where it just would seem like such a shame to me that there's so many and increasing mass extinction events of various different animals that are predominantly down to human.
Happening so close together now at this tragic time.
Exactly.
There's a pattern I'm sensing here. You talked about down the rabbit hole and down this trail. You clearly have a process or a way that you look at things. Can you talk about that some more?
I think if I have a process, it's to look at the biggest problem first, or the biggest macro thing, and then try and understand where it's come from. And then zoom in on that, and then maybe zoom in underneath that to kind of go, if I can, go down to sort of first principles of things and then work back up.
How then, as you're, in consulting, the part of the job of a consultant is to come in and look at the problem through multiple different lenses.
Yeah.
With that sort of almost scientific process method that you're talking about, how do you apply that back to some of the things you get to work on? And maybe if there's an example of a project that you'd like to talk about where that process really connected the dots for you.
Yeah, definitely. Consulting can be really frustrating, I'm sure, for so many reasons, but one of the main ones is that space to have time to think about problems and really go and investigate the why, do the sort of 5 whys analysis. is quite difficult, and there's conflicts with trying to cost that into a consultancy kind of like offering. Try your best. So that's kind of one of the conflicts. But one of the other things perhaps is the whole people process technology construct is kind of, I guess it's a little old now, but I think it's still pretty relevant. Sometimes people add data, people process technology and data. But it really does all need to come back to people. And very often people can get excited about technology and process, particularly in consulting, because it's probably easier to replicate and monetize as well. But you've really got to keep everything people focused. And I think that's been a theme of the conference that we're at as well, is it all comes back to human-centered behaviors, ultimately.
Well, let's take it back. So here we are at this AI conference, and you have a unique lens about it. There's a lot of talk about like all the amazing things AI can do for us, the problems they can solve, the acceleration, augmentation, on and on and on. But there's other aspects, especially when you look at it from a sustainability or defense perspective. What do you think about when you think about AI?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I'm really, really interested, but I'm quite suspicious, I guess, or skeptical of some things, or just cautious maybe. Let's go with cautious, where I just try and figure out what is it that I don't know, what is it that isn't as well, publicized. And two things for that. One of them is I'm just doing a master's in practical ethics to get after this. I'm really interested in AI ethics, and I know it's been a real theme actually of quite a few talks and panels at the conference, which has been nice. But I was speaking yesterday at a panel on the environmental impacts of AI, and where I was coming, like the direction I was coming in, was from quantifying the problem in the first place. So understanding what number are we working with here to try and ultimately then maybe apply another AI to come and fix it, or whatever, an AI solution to come fix it, if that is even the right solution to fix the problem. Yeah, I think from two angles, from an engineering, very kind of like logical perspective, and then the other one, well, also a logical perspective, but from a philosophical standpoint, but that kind of bakes in the human element as well as the numbers and the quantifying element, which is incredibly difficult, by the way.
It's really compelling in the fact that you're looking at it from these different angles and these different lenses, going and thinking about, the ethical aspects of this. One of the things that is so unique about this AI conference compared to so many others is there's deep conversation about that. And there's lively debate, I think, which is what we need, because everybody's moving so fast. We don't have the time to wait and see what's going to happen. We have to make decisions now.
Yeah, and it's difficult when we don't really know what the future is going to look like to make decisions right now. And it's difficult for decision makers or people in positions of power or policy makers to make those decisions when this really might not be their area of expertise as well. And they have to trust industry experts or, new startups that are coming up with ideas to, and they have to take all of this. And I think they're in a really difficult position to try and regulate and legislate for something they really don't know what it's going to look like. And I think the onus probably should be on having quite fast and flexible policy and legislation cycles to be able to adapt a little bit easier to support those policymakers, but also for the tech and for the industry base as well.
Yeah, Jan LeCun yesterday was talking about the importance of not regulating to the point that we destroy innovation.
Yeah.
And finding that balance is going to be a very interesting thing, especially because there's so many voices and so many perspectives. It's going to be an exciting time, because it's not going to be 20 years from now that it's going to be in the next 2 years that this has to happen. Okay, so you're a big believer in AI. You look at things through multiple different lenses. You run down to the macro, to the micro, and back up. As you look over the next 2 years, what's something that you are most interested in coming out of this, your work, the work around AI?
I really like running towards things that I don't understand very well, and then, going down the rabbit hole. And one of them is quantum computing and quantum computer scale connected with various different forms of AI, working towards a general AI or AGI. That combination of things is really, really interesting to me. Perhaps also, if I can squeeze another one in, combined with successful and at-scale nuclear fusion, because I think that triad of nuclear fusion, quantum computer scale, and an AGI is really interesting. I don't know how far away we are, and so many people keep, they talk about it being, it's always 30 years away or whatever. I wonder if we are getting ever so slightly closer, and I'm really, really interested in that space from an engineering and a philosophy perspective.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here. It's great to get to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome.